French like Togolese?
No. French like. Well, I guess. Are you serious? You said she's black. How can she be French?
Hey, welcome back to the Parrot Side podcast. Myself, Skills. We got man like Rose.
Yeah, 60 in the building. Nigga, that's my line, bro. Like, what the hell?
But this guy in this entire life, come on.
Hey, what's up? What's up?
We've got special guests in the building.
One of my great friends, poets, playwrights,
Chee.
you know, PhD students.
Chee.
At this point, she pretty much does everything, really. The woman formerly known as verse writer, we have Lanaire today. And, you know, she has her own podcast, Story Pod. If you don't know, get to know. She also has a newsletter that she does. But she has an event coming up. So please tell us more about your event.
Thank you for the introduction, Kamal, and everyone for having me. So my event is called Story Stopper, and it's basically an event where guests are invited to listen to the podcast Story Pod, and they have free food. Well, not free food, actually. The event comes with food. There's going to be food, there's going to be games, conversations, opportunity to meet other storytellers and reflect on Nigerian history alongside creativity. So it's just an event about storytelling, and it's on the 8th of October, and you can find out more about the event on Storypod's Instagram or my Instagram, Lanaire Aderemi.
You had me at free food.
Yeah.
Free food is I swear to God, I don't even know what it was. Like every time there was an event in Warwick, it's like free food. Once you say free food, everybody just goes.
I mean, food is, I think because no one really likes, okay.
Guy, food is expensive now. Guy, you get there and it's like a slice of pizza, bro. It's like, nigga, I ain't leave my dormitory for a slice of pizza. Like, what the hell?
What were you expecting? The full course meal? What were you expecting?
Yeah, expecting full wrap of pound soup. Yeah, at least make it jollof rice or something. Or at least something that I can go away satisfied, not like a slice of pizza. But yeah, the event is in London, so if you're around, I've been to how many of the events? I don't even know how many of the events I've been to now. But like pretty much all of them sell out. All of them are great. I have a lot of videos from them, so it's an experience you don't really forget because it's probably like one of the first unique experiences you have when it comes to anything poetry, playwrights, and I'm sure in the podcast space you still do more of the same. So if you're into Nigerian history, women's rights, that kind of thing, just show up, man. You enjoy it.
Hey, y'all know what the fuck it is, boy. All three of us, same primary school. Hey, grew with our school. Shout out the gang still. Shout out the Parrot Side. We're just here to do what we're doing back then. We had to hang out. So come hang with us. All right, cool. So agenda number 1, fear of failure. Actually, I guess Lanaire is a good guest because, you know, she's out here. She's doing that thing. She's a PhD. You get me?
Mini salad.
Yo, you get me? So she's obviously working hard. So I guess I guess I can assume that you have a fear of failure. You want to be great out in these streets. So what's your idea of fear of failure? Is it really more about like, you know, lifestyle? Is it more about the consequences? What do you think?
I think for me, a lot of times the fear of failure is, I read it as a fear of shame. So a lot of times people are scared to fail because they're scared of shame. But I try to live a life that is free of shame, and so I'm not as scared of failure as I was many years ago. So I think it applies for many like areas of my life. So when it comes to career, I just try my best to take risks and think of it more so as what would my future self require of me in the present. And then when it comes to like other areas, like hobbies or relationships or my writing, for instance, I'm just trying my best to essentially just be myself, as cliche as that sounds, and remind myself that like I can never lose. Like no matter what, I feel like I have a very I'm very, very and maybe this is where faith comes in, but when it comes to like being convicted of who I am as a person, because I know who I am and what I carry, even when failure seems like it's near, I know I can never lose because it's never failure, or if it is failure, it's not the kind of failure that would ruin me. It's the kind of failure that would just allow me to take a detour to something else in my own life. So yeah.
Okay, let me push you a bit. So I guess okay. Well, what do you define as failure? I guess in general, in contrast to what
Hmm.
you just said, yeah. What would failure then look like? Because it seems like what you're doing is, which again, don't get me wrong, that's just human nature. I would do the same thing. If like things don't go my way, it's like now we take that L and flip it. We turn the L's into
Yeah,
lessons. You get me? But it's still an L
absolutely.
though.
Yeah, I guess yeah. I like that.
So
I think
yeah,
failure is an
go
L then, like as you said, I think that's probably the best definition for it, an L.
come on,
So
what you saying?
yeah, actually, so this thing that you just mentioned now, is that because of your faith, like, or where does it come from, like that mindset?
I think many things. I think okay, ironically, it's probably come from the fact that I failed before, and so I have more confidence. Because I do think like failure is like practice for greater things. I think when you failed a number of times and you maybe overcome that, then you're more confident. So a lot of it just comes from my confidence, and perhaps
Mm,
also faith because I just know that even when things don't work out in the way I want it to do, because of like a grand sort of narrative or story to my life, eventually, I'll be where I'm supposed to be. So I gain sort of peace from that. Yeah.
mm. To be fair, many people do say like experience is the best teacher, so it's kind of hard to argue against someone with that kind of mindset. I think for
Mm,
me, it's fear of failure is a hard one because, well, for most of us, we come from like privileged families. Like we go to the best schools, for the most part, anyway.
Box.
We go to the best schools. We have
yeah.
like parents who did well and
Yeah, we're not
achieved
talking
so much.
Avicenna here.
Yeah, no, I've said that. Yeah,
Understand.
I mean, to be fair, it's still a good school. It's still, it doesn't lie. I lie with this one. It's still a good school. So like when I look at my parents and my friends, and I look at their parents and the kind of houses we grew up in and what we are exposed to, it's like you're trying to live up to something that's so high up. So it's like if you're a politician's son or a banker's son, you're a lawyer's son, you're someone who aspires to be like your parents. Because for me, like that's the bar I set for myself. Because that's what I've seen firsthand.
Mm,
Because like my dad got quite far in his career, I look at him and I'm like, well, this is what I'm going to try and do for myself, so my kids can have a similar life to the one I had. But at the end of the day, like the times are so different. Because for them, when they graduated, they were given cars, they were given houses, like
Box.
people were lining up to give them jobs. Whereas for
Mhm.
us, it's the complete opposite. Like we have to work for pretty much everything we have. So that bar we're setting ourselves is not entirely realistic, but we do it nonetheless because it's ambition. Like that's what you want to achieve. So sometimes it's hard for me to look at where I want to go and look at where I am now and be like, well, it's gonna happen. Like I have faith, it's gonna happen. Like a lot of times I'm scared, like you just never get that. And unfortunately,
Mm.
I might not. Like I might not. I really don't know. Um, but that fear will always be there until I guess I get to a point in my career where I'm like, well, I made it, but what does that even look like? Because there's always gonna be more, right? Like even when you get somewhere, you always want more. So do you ever actually reach a point where you're satisfied, or are you always going to keep aspiring to have more and then keep yourself at this standard that you're never really going to reach? So you're just in a constant state of failure in a way. So for me, that fear is there. It's going to be there for a while. But we'll see. Hopefully one day we'll leave, Shab. I don't know.
Damn, that got deep real quick, boy.
yeah. But I wish
Yeah.
you were beginning to sound like J. Cole.
Someone pulled up his
Bro, like,
notes.
He's
nah,
spitting though.
because
He's
like at the
spitting.
end of the day,
Yeah.
like we're at a point in our lives. Like I'm 25, so I'm at a point in my life where
Yeah.
I finished school. Like I'm getting to I want to start my career now. Like it's
Mm,
something you're thinking about a lot. So it's not really like I made zero notes for this. It's not even something I had to think about. Like immediately the topic came up, I already knew where this was gonna go because it's a
mm,
constant fixture in my life because of where I am.
Let me ask you something to
yeah.
come out because I think it was something you said earlier. What is the motivation for you? Is it like for your future family and future like children or something? Or is the motivation just to be like, oh, okay, maybe like I saw my dad here, so I want to be as good as here. and he's proud or something? Like, what is the motivation?
Yeah, that's a tough one as well, man. Like, I think, I think for me, I look at my past achievements, right? Like from primary school, secondary school, university. Because at the end of the day, when you're younger, you think life is okay, get good grades in school, get a job, and
Yeah.
then just live life, right? Like, nobody really tells you about the bullshit in between.
Mm.
So I felt like I'd positioned myself to be in a place where, I've gotten the grades, I went to a good school, and I can get a good job, and then like raise my family, and everything will be cool. So that motivation for me, or um, the motivation for me always came from where I was before and where I think I should be. So it's
Mm.
not always like a realistic expectation on where you're meant to go. It's more of an idealistic thing where I just felt like I've done the prerequisite conditions, and now I should have the benefits that come from doing that. So when I actually analyze it deeper in the way you've just asked now, like my being like my dad is definitely like part of it, because like I see it every day.
Mm.
But also it's just, yeah, you have to live, you have to survive in this life, and survive in this life, you kind of have to be successful. And in the social class we're in, most of my friends are going to be in a certain income bracket, and whether through their own hard work or through their own connections or whatever. Like, you don't want to be that guy that is just way below the standard of what your friends are. So even like recently, there were some of my friends were talking about like taking a trip to Ghana, and I'm like, well, that sounds cool, but I'm kind of broke, so, so I can't do that. Like, that shit sucks, man. so,
Okay.
so even shit like that, or like there's a business opportunity that pops up, and a certain minimum income or minimum amount you need to put in to get in on this deal, but you don't have that because you still haven't reached that level. So I think
Mm.
for me, if I was in a lower social class, like the pressure wouldn't be as much. Maybe where I did my service and they tried to offer me a job, like maybe I would have stayed there. Like honestly, if I was in a lower income bracket, I would have probably stayed there. But I looked at myself and I looked at what I've done and where I want to go, and I'm like, this isn't good enough. So I feel like part of it is pride, and part of it is just trying to make sure you're not left behind in your own bracket of friends.
Mm. Mm.
So
Facts,
yeah.
facts.
I also really
Uh,
like
go on.
Kamal's. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say I really like Kamal's points about being content. I mean, you said that earlier. Because I feel like a lot of times we feel like we want more because of things that we're seeing, whether it's on social media or even just what our parents had. And comparison really is a thief of joy. Like every single time I felt like I wanted something because somebody else had it, I've had to kind of like be honest with myself and question and examine my motives for things. So yeah, I
Yeah.
really like that point about contentment and really, I mean, the question that Rose you asked Kamal about like why did he want certain things? That was interesting because I always, yeah, I try my best to ask it, like, why do I actually want what I want? Because even like now in the UK, I think by the time you're like 25, everyone is kind of asking, like, well, when are you going to buy your first property? And I remember, even though it's something that I do want to have, I remember telling my friend, like, a few of my friends, because we have a very different way of thinking to some people. And we're talking about how
Mhm,
we love to travel and we would actually prioritize traveling in our 20s over getting a house because we don't necessarily want to live
mhm,
outside London in our 20s. And I remember like another friend saying like, "Oh my goodness, like wow, like they would want to have a house. Like for them, it's a big deal. Whereas for me, I mean, if I had the money, I'd get it just because in the long term it probably makes more financial sense. But I'm also not going to sacrifice any possible enjoyment that I'd want in the short term just
Mm.
because of that goal. Because what I think again, it's about what you value as opposed to your fears. I think if you value certain things, you pick that over that, and if you don't get that, then that's going to be failure to you. But if you value other things, then yeah,
Like, can I ask you
mm,
something though, real quick? So, Lanaire, so
yeah.
basically, what you've just described, right? Because I mean, we only have one life, so this whole, fear of failure, we have to work hard and blah 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 blah. You seem like you're doing a lot because I mean, shit, PhD. But like, do you feel like what you just described, like the whole traveling and this, that, 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 do you feel like, I mean, you kind of have to sacrifice a lot of those things, though, right?
Mm.
So is the fear of failure then driving us towards like lack of enjoyment, lack of actually living?
Yeah, for sure. I think. I think it could work both ways because I feel like if you're scared of failing, for instance, you might not. I'm trying to think of something. So someone might look at it this way that why would I be traveling if I don't have the savings for a house seat or something like that? And then you're not postponing your own
Yeah.
enjoyments because of something more long term. But I think it goes back to
Mhm.
what you value. And I think for me, I mean, the opposite of it is success, obviously. I think of success as choosing to follow through with what you value. Like it's more about values. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, I think that's also in my own case. But with the traveling thing, I mean, um, I I mean, I'm saying this from knowing that I'm also earning in pounds, so it's different from if you're earning in
Mhm.
other currencies. But I do think like it's not as there's so many places you can travel to that are actually not going to kill you in terms of finances if you save
Yeah,
towards it.
yeah, yeah.
And
Honestly, it's not.
even yeah, so I'm just using traveling as one example, but I mean there are other sort of more ambitious things I desire. But yeah,
Look, at the end of the day, like traveling at this age, like you're paying for one person. How much is a train
exactly.
to France? How much is the hotel? And like, if you're in the UK, it's a lot easier. But if you're gonna wait like 10 years, well, at least for me anyway,
Wait, who
because
else will you be paying for?
you know how night culture works now. So
Oh,
I listened. It was actually a podcast I was listening to. A little bit of this, like yeah, Tito, but they were
no,
talking
carry
about
on.
how there was this woman who wanted to go to Greece, and her husband. She earns more than her husband, so she could afford to go to Greece. But her husband wanted to go to Togo or something like that, or Ghana. And she was like, no,
Mhm.
like she's going to be happy to pay for the trip. And her husband was like, he's not going to be comfortable with that idea. But yeah, when you said that thing about, that reminded me of that
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah. So
Yeah,
you already know. So like, if I wait 10 years from now, I'm gonna be paying for like
yeah.
I don't know 3, 4 people. I don't know what kind of family I have, but
wait,
Three, four
you're
people.
like
Jamal.
three, four
What?
I
wives?
don't know, bro. No,
Kids.
kids now. This guy. Like, I could have a wife and 2 kids. I don't know. But either way, it's gonna be like
Oh,
a lot more expensive than if I was to do it now. So
Yeah.
when you
I
have
also
the time and you have the resources,
yeah.
why not do it now?
I also think like I mean going back to the idea about twenties, we have such it's not like there's no fear of failure because there is, but the like we can come back from failure a lot stronger now than we would in let's say our 50s or 40s. So we might as well I think failure
true,
should be
true.
encouraged actually in this period. Like I think we should really encourage failure. And I mean I know I said earlier that I can I see failure quite differently now. And I'm not saying that it's something that I fully accepted because even with this idea of story stuff, I like the first time I told someone they were like, it's exactly what you guys said. Like, are you guys is that actually going to work? Like what? Like you're paying people sorry, you're charging people to listen to something that already exists. But then I would never have, been able to do it if I hadn't tried. And so I do think like it's all about
Yeah.
courage. One of my friends, before this pod, I was talking to him about something, and he said to me that um the exact quote was it's not his quote by the way, but he says it's by one of the guys that co-founded PayPal. And the guy Peter
Hmm.
Thiel said, not only is brilliant thinking rare, but courage is an even shorter supply than genius. So I think a
Hmm.
lot of failure is about a almost a fear of being courageous because being courageous doesn't mean you're going to be right. It just means that you've just taken a shot at yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, there's something I even want to say related to that, but let Rose go first
Yeah,
before this guy
Rose, what you
forgets
saying,
what he's
bro?
even thinking about.
Yeah, my head has just been left, right, left, right, left, right. Well, I mean, there's two things that I just thought of. There's one set of people that might ride on the wave of delayed gratification and feel like, oh, I don't need to do all of these things now. Like you said, I don't need to travel now. Like, let me do all the work now, make all the money, and then eventually I'll travel and all. And then there's the other set of people that like, look, man, you only live once. Let's do this now.
Facts.
And if you look at things from a very objective perspective, both parties there's sense to what both parties are doing. At the end of the day, I guess it all boils down to the individual and what exactly works for you. Because some people might feel like, look, I need to just be patient, save all the money I need, and then it works out for them. Some people might feel, let me just travel now, let me enjoy my days now, and all, and it works out for them. So I think it all boils down to individual. Then, in terms of like that fear of failure, I think it's something that is a constant, like it's something that will always happen. And fear is a natural emotion. It's a natural emotion, but like it's the ways we react towards that fear that
Mhm.
might determine whether or not we would remain as failures if failure does happen, or whether or not we experience the failure, we pick ourselves up and move on, pretty much. We've all had like different experiences and all of that. And it's either we made the best out of the situation and then we became better, just like Lanaire described, or we kept wallowing in self-pity and we didn't make any progress. And as I'm speaking, like it's almost like I'm just reflecting at the same time, because I found myself in this situation a lot of the time, especially during this my
Mhm.
masters. Like
Mhm.
my courses, my exams. I remember this one of my courses, like, bro, I was scared of, because throughout the semester, like the guy would just the lecturer would just come to the class because it was virtual now. You just come online, just talk, talk, talk. That's the end. Like I didn't gain anything. And like when it was time for the exams, then I just said, "Oh, no, let me just do this." And I was legit scared that I was going to fail that exam.
Mhm.
But when the results came out and like I did well, I felt, I mean, I could have done better, but like I felt a strain of motivation in me that, like, I mean, I was able to do this, so I can definitely push forward and do more. I
Mhm.
know. And in terms of like expectations, I mean, one of the reasons why we all are scared to fail is because of the expectations that we have for not just for ourselves, but like how our family members and our friends to view us. I mean, come on, like you mentioned, we see where our parents have reached, we see the things that they have accomplished. I mean, during my NYC, I worked where my dad used to work when he was still in the Nigerian army. And like almost everyone had something very good to say. I know. And like I'm just like, wow. I mean, my dad retired 10 years, almost about 12 years ago. Yeah. Yeah, 12 years ago. He was in that place about 15 years ago. And like people that were still there, they still had very good things to say about him. So, like, the expectations that other people have created around us and even our family members, like, it's almost like you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself, to perform, to meet these expectations, to exceed these expectations and all. But then at the end of the day, the honest truth is that like every individual is different. We cannot tie our success to that of our parents or our family members, our friends, because we all have our different timelines and all. And that's something that we should all understand, because at the end of the day, things are different, people are different. Just because I got to the point I want to be faster doesn't mean that, or just because Kamal got to the point that he wanted to be faster doesn't make me a failure, doesn't make Etinosa a failure, doesn't make Lanaire a failure. We all have our different appointed times. I know. We just need to make sure that we don't allow that experience of failure to overweigh us, and we just need to keep pushing on, basically.
I was gonna say that I really, really like what you said about expectations, and we all have our appointed times. Because I do think a lot of times the fear of failure is as a result of a feeling like you're not aligned with the season that you want to be aligned in, whereas
Yeah.
um it's just a different season you're supposed to be in. So, for instance, like when I'm okay, I'll give an example, and I'll use my life at the moment because I'm doing a PhD. I'm not earning the money I'm earning isn't like the average sort of salary that a lot of my friends in grad jobs are earning, because I basically get a stipend, which is it's not even salary. It's basically just to cover like basics. And so
Yeah.
even though I do like freelance stuff as a writer, my money would just definitely not. It's not going to match the money that my contemporaries are earning, right? But because I value certain things, I spend my money on those things. And what I've realized is whenever I talk to my friends, sometimes they tell me, ah, Lanaire, but like you have so much time, and that is itself a great thing. And I was thinking, but you guys have more money. And it's like for them, actually, no, it's about time. And so one thing
Yeah.
I've also realized or have become more grateful for is the luxury of time. And I think sometimes when we're taking breaks from maybe from career or we're even looking for jobs, like obviously those things are stressful and the fear of failure is even more crippling. But I think in those seasons, um, if we're just more grateful for the season that we're in and we don't look at other people, it's just a lot easier to live life. And I really like that your point about appointed times. And then regarding expectations, I do think like a lot of people project the expectations they have from parents onto their lives. So I remember in uni, and this is like a true story from my A level results day. I was supposed to study law. Um, no offense to like Kamal who did law, sorry, but
I mean, I
I
know
was
the
supposed to
story
study law.
already. Yeah.
Yeah, and I basically ended up doing sociology just based off. I missed my grade by 3 marks, and I remember my mom was so. I know it was so painful. My mom was so insistent on this law thing. She was like, maybe go to another university, apply for law here. And I was just like, that was the first time I ever stood up to her. And I was like, no, Mom, I'm not going to do this. Like, I just feel like this sociology is the right path for me. And being the mother she is, she did not listen, and she even came to work to convince the like law. I don't know people. I don't know if she thought that was like in Nigerian school. In Nigerian school, where you can convince people to get things. No, you can't. So it didn't work. And I remember being so sad on the day it happened. But then, like, if not for doing sociology, I would not even be writing, or I wouldn't have even done a PhD, because I learned so much from my degree, and I also had time again to do like my shows and just all these things I was able to do at uni. So um if I had listened to her in that time, I know like I don't think I would have actually been happy, to be honest with you. So yeah, I feel like we do project a lot of the expectations we have from parents, even from friends as well. Like you see your friend getting married and you think, now is my time, but no, it's not your time. So yeah. Um
I was even gonna go a different direction, but what you just said reminded me of something. Like, I think the first time I had this same moment you just had, mine was in SS1. So my parents wanted me to do like science-related courses, chemistry, physics, all that nonsense. Yeah. I hated them. I was not good at them. Like,
STEM?
so
Nonsense.
Nonsense.
yeah, I was the only one that didn't do like anything science, math related. So that's why at the time it was such a big thing for me to go in that direction. And I'm like, but I'm not good at it. Like so the way my school worked in JS3, so that so there's A, B, C, D, and then the top 20 in the year will be in A class, right? So in my JS3, I was in A class, and for some reason, there was this thing that they correlated being smart to being good at math, and I was not good at math. Like I was okay at math compared to the people in that class. I was bad at math. So, and the math teacher used to move so quickly, and it was the same thing with physics and all these other science related courses. So I just didn't do well in any of them because I'm not naturally like good at those kind of things, and the pace at which was being taught was too quick for me. So when it got to SS1 and I said I need to pick like what do I want to do, I said I want to do social sciences because I enjoyed it a lot more than I did physics, chemistry, biology. And then when the results eventually came out, WIAC and all that, and I saw how I did, and I literally made it a point to go to my parents and say, see, like if I went to go and do the other thing you wanted me to do, like how would that have turned out? Like, look at me now, I have my degree, I have my law degree, all these things, like and I'm doing well. So like Lanaire said, like sometimes you have to stand up to your parents, even though they have these expectations on you. But also related to what Rose said in terms of like comparison to other people. My dad told me this thing not even long ago. He was like, well, you might look at your friends now and see like they started before you. By the end of the day, if you want to get as far as you want to get, like you can start in 2022, you can stagnate by 2026. Someone that started in 2024 can just keep moving up and they've already passed you. So it's not always about where you start, it's more about where you end. And I think Rose said that. So that just reminded me of what my dad said. But also, what's interesting is Rose also mentioned like success, and I kind of want to ask you guys like, what does success actually look like? Because I feel like success to different people looks different, and not even related to this. Like last week, I was writing something. It's probably gonna come out maybe like next week or so, or whatever. But it's kind of related to this topic where I look at success and I'm like, I want to reach this, this, and this. But then when I get there, I never actually celebrate getting there. Like for me, it's almost like I didn't do what I just did. So immediately I get there, I'm already thinking of okay, what's next? Like I never actually live in the moment ever. It's always what's next. So what does success actually look like to you guys? Skills, maybe you can start off. What does success look like to you?
I don't know. That's a tough one. I think the main thing is success isn't like an end point, kind of like what you're saying. Because like a lot of people might see it that way, like, oh, I've gotten here, therefore I'm now successful. Like, nah, there's always going to be more. So success in general is like, okay, I've reached this goal. Okay, now you're successful for now, right? So whether you choose to live in
Mhm.
it or whatever, you are successful in that moment in your own aim, maybe not in an objective sense. So I think there's always going to be more. That's just the thing. So is there a real definition of success in the sense of you get there and now that's it? Nah, there's always going to be more.
But when was the last time you like celebrated one of your achievements?
I was playing soccer last week, scored goal. I was like, oh yeah, get me like
I love
celebrated.
football.
Yeah, I celebrated that. Yeah.
All right, Lano, what does success look like for you?
Hmm. I just think it looks like alignment with God. That's for me what it is. What just not going at anybody
What does
else's
that mean?
pace.
What does that mean, please?
What does that
Like only you
mean?
and rules understand
Yeah,
that. So you have
yeah,
to explain
yeah.
to the
Okay,
rest of us.
what does that mean? I think I think I think that means that if so if God tells me to do something and I do it, that's success. Like it's just as simple as that. It's obedience. And that looks like, for instance, in a more practical way, if God says to me, do a PhD, and I decide to do it, then I've been successful. So that's what it is for me. It's
Mm.
just following, I guess it's almost like following, for people that aren't religious, following what I feel led to do. So following what I think I'm called to do, as opposed to what others call me to do.
So if God
Um,
tells somebody to do it, not you, but it's like somebody else do a
mm,
PhD, for example, and then they drop out, that's an L for sure.
that's debatable.
Or like God tells somebody to make music and then we hear the music and we're like, what the fuck is this? So it's like, is that
Then I would say that success is not, wisdom is also important. So maybe they do need some training with their production. So I think them deciding to
okay.
do the music is great, which is obedience, but then they might need to brush up their production. In the same way, like with my PhD, when I first started,
I don't
I
know if
don't
I
think
agree
like
with that though. But go on.
I even have a counterpoint to what Skill said, because
Mm. Mhm.
for instance, like you said, if God says you should make music and niggas are like, oh, what is this?
Uh-huh.
I mean, like, you're not making it to necessarily please man,
Then
because
why do you
like
make music?
because
You're
God
making it
to
to please God.
yeah.
I think it's an
Yeah, but the music is
expression.
trash. So like what
Hey, that's the thing, guy. You might that's your perspective. I mean, people make good. Everybody has their own perspective on music. So
Nah, guy.
like you might feel it's trash, but somebody else is being inspired. Somebody else is being touched by that music.
I think
I
what I would say
guess.
is I think it also depends on who your audience is. For some people, God is their only audience. It's not to say that you shouldn't, because I also think
Yeah.
like
Then they
for me,
shouldn't
for
release the song
instance,
to the public.
no. But if God told them to do it, then they should. But I think it's just also about wisdom and also like you should also get feedback and you should get good counsel. So if someone then says to you, actually, this isn't great, I would ask, okay, why is it not great? And if it's a thing of like if it's the production, if people actually spell out why it's not great, then you can work on it. But it's just a thing of, oh, it's not good, and that's not enough. You
But
want
like
someone
that's
to
Yeah,
fix
like
it.
that's where skills is coming from. It's coming from a pure hater
no,
perspective.
I'm not coming from a pure hater perspective. I'm coming from I
Okay.
guess if you want to call it that, also a realistic perspective. So I see what you're saying. But in that
Mm.
situation, I wouldn't just say, yeah, I mean, go and make this better. I would ask, like, why are you doing music? And then the nigga will probably be like, because God told me to. I'll be like, see, go back
Oh
home,
no,
go
I
to your
think
room, lock the door, kneel down, pray, ask God to make
I'm
sure.
sorry.
You know what I'm saying? Because it can't be that. Because I've heard
Yeah.
some songs and I'm like,
Yeah.
nah. You know what I'm saying? Nah.
Mm.
church
Oh, but
songs, to be honest. So I'm like, nah.
okay. No, I'm also, one thing is I also believe in like the spirit of excellence, and I don't think, I think sometimes some people are just doing things like they start off, because I also believe in small beginnings, and I think some people start off not great and then they get better because they followed the call that they felt led to do. Like I'm sure some of our favorite artists didn't start off the way they are now. If they quit, they wouldn't be
Mhm.
even where they are now. So the way I just see it is
Cause
more about process, and I think that's also why for me I wrote that success is also doing things and enjoying things whilst I'm doing it. So I think a lot of people focus a lot on, and Kamal, you mentioned it when you're talking about how you sometimes don't feel anything when you get those things. I remember going through a point in my life where I'd get something that I really, really worked hard for, I prayed for, and I'm like, oh, was that it? And I realized the reason for that was
Yeah.
because when I was in the season of waiting for it, or even working towards that goal, I was so obsessed with the goal that it almost became an idol. But when I decided to focus more on, I know a lot of, like, I don't watch basketball, but I always see on my timeline, courtesy of some people on this
Mhm.
thing. So um I know a lot of basketballers, like, or motivational, always, like, some of them are really corny, but some of them are helpful. And they talk a lot about how,
Mm.
you have to fall in love with the game, fall in love with the game. The game is bad. And I do think it's true. I think if we focus too much on the end product, when you get it, it's like, is that it? Like I remember working on, because my graduation was a few months ago, and I remember I told a friend that I worked 13 seconds for a graduation that took me 3 years. And I was just like, what?
Mm.
Was that it? But because I had so much fun in
Mm.
uni, I didn't follow people's, like, oh, you have to apply for all these grad jobs. Like I just did my own thing. That 13 seconds is one of the best 13 seconds of my life. So yeah,
Mm.
I think success for me is also about doing things and enjoying it, but also falling in love with the game. I think that's what it is as well.
It's funny you say that. Like I was watching you guys. I don't know if you guys know this. The shop. It's like this. It's like a roundtable discussion thing that LeBron started with his business partner and whatnot. So the last episode,
oh, the barber
they had
shop.
like Idris. Yeah, yeah. So they had like Idris Elba, Drew Barrymore, some of these actors, Kyrie, all these guys, and they were talking about people looking at. They look at the beginning and they look at the end, and they were like, but the part people miss is you have to fall in love with the process because at the end of the day it's falling in love with that process that's going to get you up every day to do what you need to do to get where you need to get to. If you don't fall in love with the process, like, and you're only looking at the end goal, at some point they're going to be like, well, how much more do I have to do? Because you're not enjoying what you're doing. But if you're truly enjoying it, like, you have the motivation to keep going. And also, to quote Nas, I don't remember what song, but one of my favorite Nas lines was like, niggas hate what they don't understand, fear what they can't conquer. That's just the theory of man. And uh, realistically speaking, yeah, when you don't know what's coming, because you're trying to go somewhere you've never been, it's gonna be scary. Like you're gonna be afraid. But if you don't take that leap to do it, you will never know what it's like. So you might actually get there and be like, this is actually not too bad. But because people don't take that leap of faith, they never get there. So whether it's the music thing, whether it's whatever it is, you might start off terrible. And like Skill said, you might say, have to go back to God and pray again.
Go and ask him
But
again, fam.
yeah, but at least you have to do it to know, okay, maybe this wasn't it, and then try something else. You can't just be scared of what it is that is waiting for you on the other side. Like you
Okay,
just
but
have to
here's
take a
why I
leap of
bring that
faith
up,
to do it.
because you just said try something else. But in that perspective, where they feel like this is what they must do, it's going to be tough, right? Because then it's going to start fucking with them mentally because they keep trying and trying and trying, and it's just not working.
Yeah, but I also said definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. Like you're gonna have to switch something up. And sometimes you know, like if me today, I might love football, but I'm not good enough to be a footballer. Like that's just, and I know people that still have that ambition, like even at this age. So, and I can't really just go to them and be like, nah, you can't do it. Like you're too old or whatever. Even if realistically speaking, that's probably true. But like Skill said, some people are so hell bent on a goal that sometimes they can't look beyond that, and that's also a problem. Like at some point you do have to assess your options and be like, okay, maybe a different direction is the way to go. But with things like music and acting and all these things that you can do regardless of how old you are or whatnot, like it's a bit harder for someone that has that passion for music to be like, well, I'm just gonna give up. Because at the end of the day, his mindset is he only takes one. So one song, one hit song, that's it, he's blown up. That's always gonna be the mindset. So it's hard to get someone out of that state of mind. But at the end of the day, man, whatever it is you want to do, Just try it. See where it goes.
Oh, I was gonna say like skill said something about that's not realistic, and I wanted to sort of ask a question about delusions and
Yeah, go on.
whether you guys believe in that. So I have
Mm.
this. I was watching the Kanye. I don't know if you guys have seen the Genius documentary, and I mean
Yes.
Kanye was obviously amazing. Like he's always been talented from the start. Although I do think he also did well with like mentorship and training himself and all of
Wait,
that,
which
which made him
documentary?
It's on
Genius,
Netflix.
the Kanye West on Netflix.
Oh, okay, I haven't seen it. Go on though.
Oh, it's so good. But there was something that he said to he well said and did, and he was talking a lot about how what people would call, I guess, manifestation, although I don't actually believe in all of that. But the delusion aspect of it is what I'm interested in. So the idea that you might not necessarily be good at something or even be where you want to be with it, but then because you have such a great vision, you almost like you're tricking your brain to thinking that's what you already are. And then as a
Mhm.
result of your brain being way ahead of it, you end up reaching that destination. So you know how you had said skills like, oh, it's not realistic. I just thought that was interesting because perhaps
Mm.
some of the things that are
Mm.
unrealistic are things that like it's almost like I wasn't even necessarily countering your point, but I was just asking like,
This is a conversation I have with my younger brother because I've been taking him to the gym and stuff, and he has this thing where he feels just like you said, this false confidence thing. And and it annoys me sometimes because I'm like, bro, you're not as good as you think. And the problem is, it's not just
Wow.
in the gym. Like, yeah, like it applies to everything he does. And he was like, well, he tells himself he's better than he is, so he feels like he can do it. And I'm like, okay, but what's the balance between doing that and also recognizing you're not good enough, so you work harder? And I feel like that balance is something that a lot of people
Delicate
don't
balance,
have,
to
and
be
he's one of
honest.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of them that does not have that balance. So he just goes into it and thinks he's already there when he's not. Like realistically, like you need to put a lot more work to get to where you need to get to. And sometimes to do that, you have to recognize you're not actually there and then motivate yourself to work harder to get there. So where's that balance?
That's a tough one. I think it depends on what and where, though. I feel like it really does. It
Yeah,
depends.
yeah, I
Say,
think
for
so
example,
too.
like we're talking about boxing earlier. For most boxers, to be honest, or even MMA fighters, combat sports, they can deep down in their soul, they will know that man, that guy is levels. Like this guy might fuck me up. But they have to like
Mm.
keep telling themselves in press conferences and like out loud, like, no, I am the best. Because if they don't go in there feeling like they're the best, they'll get fucked up. I'm saying, but like in other parts of life where it's like not that critical, where it's like, okay, no, let's just sit down and be realistic, like, bro, your shit. You know what I'm saying? So let's work on this
Yeah.
instead, So I think it just depends. I don't know. I think it just depends.
I mean, have you guys had like an eye-opening moment before where you're just somewhere and you looked at the people around you and like, okay, like you need like, yo, these niggas are smart. Like I remember when I was
Yeah, 100%.
interning at a law firm in London and we were doing this client pitch thing. And bro, like everyone that was presenting before me, I was like, wow, like these guys are good. Like it was so mind blowing to me because the last internship I did was also at a big company, and when it came to presentations, I had the best one. Like I was so happy with myself. All of them came to me telling me how much of a bright career I have, whatever, whatever, whatever. Just to go to a law firm, like literally like 3 months later, and see the level of people there, and I'm like, wow. And that literally that just opened my eyes. I'm like, okay, like you may think you're good, but there's people just as good as you and some even better than you. So just kind of have to work
But
like
have you
work at
also
it.
had moments where you feel like you're not necessarily levels, and then you get to some sort of space and you're like, damn, these niggas ain't shit, and like I guess basically
Yeah,
the opposite.
that's
Yeah. So
exactly what happened.
yeah.
Because I came back to Nige and I came to work here, and the I'm sorry, Nige, but yeah, and the company I was at, like literally, it took it not take long for me to recognize,
He
okay,
was
these
like, y'all
guys
are
are not
shit.
like
Y'all call
honestly
yourselves
no, but like
professionals?
but to be honest, yeah, like you should know, like if you give me work to do, like I know how long roughly what you give me should take. But if you're giving me 3 days to do something that should take me 2 hours, it should not be that skewed. Like at least let it be like, okay, you have 5 hours to do this, something I know will take me to. But like if you're giving me 3 days to do something that takes 2 hours, I'm like, okay, that does not make sense. And then over time, and I've told you guys this before, if the head of HR goes to my dad and says, okay, you kind of have to find a better place for this guy, like what other marker do you need to tell you, okay, like this
Yeah,
place you're at, like
yes.
this is just not the level for you. So again, I've had that eye-opening moment too. I'm just like, okay, I'm still that guy, like kind of still that guy. But yeah, have you guys had any of that, it's either or?
I think so. Like um, I'm very, very confident in my abilities, like honestly, and I really believe that I am one of the greatest storytellers in this world. And there are times when,
Hey, talk your
Shit.
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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think there are times where I definitely have been in spaces where I'm like, you guys are definitely capping. This person is not that great.
Mm,
And I feel like in those times, I just remind myself that, and I think, Skills, you mentioned it earlier about things being subjective. Or I don't know if it was rules, but yeah, art is very, very subjective. And I
mm,
think,
Yeah.
I mean, I know, Kamal, you're talking more in context of law, but even that is subjective because, I mean, with the little I know about legal stuff, it's like communication. At the end of the day, you're writing, you're defending, arguing,
mhm,
it's all communication, which is all art.
yeah,
So yeah, I feel like, but in times like that, I think it goes back to like, first of all, like I said earlier, who your audience is, and I think also like what your identity is rooted in. So so now I haven't actually been published by any like traditional publishing company. I've had like my work in magazines and things, but not like an actual publishing company. And I
mhm,
have friends who have had their work in that, and I honestly know that some of their work isn't as great as mine. But then I'm very aware that um like there's no need to rush. And I can't remember who said it earlier, but I was going to also say that like life is a marathon, and I think a lot of times we
mhm,
treat it as a race, as a 100 meters
mhm.
race, which is
Yeah.
where we're all.
Sprint.
I think it was yeah, we're talking
Uh,
about your dad. It's sprint, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Talking about how
Yeah.
your dad said that like essentially the finishing is better than how you start.
yeah,
And yeah, so for me, I guess I've been in that situation before, and I just I don't know, like I'm just so confident in myself that even when I'm in that situation, I just think of it as it's just their time and it's not just my time. Like my friend said something to me that really, really
yeah.
comforted me when I was going through a very, very tough period in my life with my writing because I felt so. I think the best comparison I'll use is I don't know if you guys like ever have like an artist that's an underground artist and you feel like why haven't they blown yet? Like you're like
Mhm.
what? Like how have they
Yeah.
not blown?
yeah, yeah,
I mean, we've
MC2.
And
all been artists, so
okay,
Yeah, yeah. This guy's made music before. Yeah,
oh really? Wait, who has done music?
both of
All of
them.
Is
us.
this still?
Yeah.
Oh
Apart from
wow,
me, I
that's
haven't I
so.
haven't made music, but both of
Oh
them have.
my goodness, that's so cool. So this time I talked about that musician thing. Wow, okay, that makes sense.
yeah, we were kind of hot. So.
Oh wow. Oh wow, okay. Yeah, and so like I think that's sort of how I felt. I was just like, oh, man, like I deserve this spotlight should be on me at this time. And my friend said something to me that I haven't forgotten till now. He said, sometimes the world is just not ready for you. And
Mhm,
if your work had if it essentially like came out at a particular time, they might not appreciate it. And so like I remember like when
yeah,
Kanye did I think it was 808 and Heartbreak, or I don't know which album it was, but the one that was very, very experimental and had a lot of auto-tune.
yeah. Iterates.
Um,
Yeah, iterates.
okay, it is, yeah. A lot of people, so this is what I learned from the documentary. That a lot of people were like, "What is this? Like, this is crazy. Like, why is he doing this?" But like now it's timeless. So at the moment, like my own goal in life is just to create timeless work and work that sits outside time as well. And that looks like work that is fun and is like makes me feel good. And so yeah, side I went on a side like it's all good. Yeah,
Uh,
that's what I was gonna
Kanye,
say.
Kanye, Kanye, if you're listening, give T-Pain his credit, man. Like that's his shit. He took it
Yeah,
and made it
T-Pain
popular.
deserves it.
Took all the credit, but
Honestly.
yeah, give T-Pain his credit. But like all these things you've been saying about where you want to go and how the world isn't ready for you. You also mentioned before about how you want a simple life and stuff. So if you're as successful as you want to be, how could you have a simple life at the same time?
I think it's about boundaries. I definitely do not want to be famous to the point of not having privacy. Like I literally always praying to God that God, even if something of mine, like I don't know, a book of mine was to just blow up, I don't know, do something really well. Like let me just still have my privacy because I just don't like
Hmm.
the idea of people like you know, like not being able to go to Tesco, like as basic as well, like what.
But
But
don't you think that like sets a ceiling on your success as well?
I think I'm actually content with that
Mm,
because I also think like there's a very thin line between success and greed, and it's
Hmm.
something that I've been really unpacking a lot recently. Like just asking God, like, please reveal my heart. Like, do I want this because I want to impress other people, or do I actually want this because this is what you want from me, or this is even what I want for myself as well? But I mean, so that's my own issue with fame, because I also have this theory that at some point, the more popular you are, that audience of one, it's very easy for you to just forget about it, or even just being content with your own self. I'm very uncomfortable with excess. Anything that in excess, it makes me very uncomfortable. Whether it's wealth, whether it's excess emotions, like I just don't like the idea of me not having control over certain things, or not having boundaries. So I think for me, it's just about having boundaries. That's the way I see it. And I think that there are people that are very, very popular that have also handled fame well, or handled yeah, I know people that have done that kind of well. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
So yeah, in relation to what you said, I've kind of thought about the same before, and I think I've reached the conclusion on where I fall on this whole thing. But like skills and roles, do you guys have? Obviously, there's ambition, there's everywhere you want to go, but have you ever felt like you wanna okay, Stills is not really a family man, so I'm gonna leave him out. Rose, have you ever felt like
Hey, what does that mean? What does not being a family man mean? Jules, can you explain?
Stills doesn't like
you
he
need
doesn't
to
like
listen
kids.
to the previous episodes to know what that means.
Yeah.
He doesn't like children.
Just more perspective.
Yeah, it's episode 10. I think it's episode 10. Yeah, listen to episode 10, you'll find out.
Oh wow.
So yeah,
Okay.
Rose, have you ever felt like you have you ever felt like you don't want to be successful to the point where like you don't have time for family and stuff, or do you just want to
Yeah,
go as far as you can
definitely.
go?
Because like we see it in today's world, like so many people they get so engrossed with work that they pretty much abandon their families. And I mean, there was even, I think it was a couple of weeks ago that a debate on Twitter about how a lot of parents, especially fathers, they'll do all the work and not really spend time with their children. And then when they get older and these children feel detached, like they start to wonder why. I know. And I feel like I don't want to get to a point where I wouldn't have time to spend with my wife, with my children.
Mm.
I know,
But
because
you
at
need
the end
to
of the
make
day,
the bread, though.
yeah, definitely you need to make the bread, but that doesn't mean you should neglect your family.
No, you're not neglecting. You're just
Yeah,
working.
yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
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 no,
you're
it's not that
working, but
simple though,
like,
still.
Well, could it
No,
be
yeah,
that? Could
not
it
that
just be
simple.
that Rose just values family, and because skills values something else? That could just be
yeah, I
it.
mean,
So
Yeah,
there's always
yeah.
that.
it could
There's
just
He
be
wants
always
it.
his
It could just
bread
be that.
that he always
Yeah,
reminds
that's
us about. How is his
that's
bread?
my bread.
yeah. Um. Well, I think Rose's point, sorry to like, I just had it in addition to that. I think there's something you said that just reminded me of a question I always ask myself, which is like, at what cost? So, what is the opportunity cost of my decision, essentially? And I think
Yeah,
what you were saying about like that is interesting, because when
But
the
most
kids are now
most
older,
most of these decisions will have an opportunity cost. If you're at a very high level and you're successful and you want to keep going higher, 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 well, I mean, the
Mhm.
opportunity cost is going to be time with your family. Like that, it just is what it is.
of course, yeah.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
is
except
that
you then
a good
hire.
trade-off?
Is it a good trade-off? So you don't have to
Yeah.
what, spend time with these kids. Fuck these kids, nigga. Yeah, go work, bro. Like it depends on. I mean, it depends. It really depends, but I don't know.
because like
Where
at
you
the
get
end
the
of the day, like when you're older and you retire, I mean, like there's nothing better than spending those times with family. I know. So just working your ass off and then like yeah, you feel like a stranger within your own family. Like nobody wants
yeah.
to relate or nobody wants to spend time with you because like when they actually wanted to spend time with you weren't there.
In there, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Making
And
that
I feel
bread,
like for
nigga.
most of us that have these successful parents, we can definitely relate to a degree because at some point, depending on how far your dad went, well, mostly dads in this case,
Yeah.
but someone too, like depending on how far your dad went, like the time you saw him was limited. Like even in my case, I wake
Yeah.
up, go to school. My dad goes to work 7, comes back 9 p.m. Like what time was my bedtime? It was like 8:30, like 9 p.m. So a lot of times I did not see him. And then on the weekends, used to go to Katy because my brothers lived there. So
But do
like
you
for the
feel
most
like
part,
now you're not connected with your
yeah.
dad? Like, did it make a difference in the grand scheme of things?
Well, well, yes, because there's certain behaviors or like tendencies about you or whatever that there's certain things about you that they're just not gonna be aware of because they weren't there. Like
Yeah,
you can't com
yeah,
you're not
that's
gonna
true.
you can't
Okay.
compare how
First,
much
first.
my mom understands me to like my dad.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's
Really?
just
Even in
like
terms of like, even in
yeah,
terms of like interaction as well.
yeah.
Really?
Like
Okay.
we see it now. Like we see so many people like when they are with their parents, people that their parents were with them for like the larger part of like their development years. You see how easy it is for them to
Yeah, how
relate.
close they are as well.
Yeah, for them to share things.
Mm,
Yeah.
So
okay. I mean, that
Like
makes
if I got
sense
a
too,
girlfriend
but I
today, I'm not
feel.
going to go and tell my dad like I have a girlfriend. Like, but like
Oh,
someone
you
else
told your
will.
mom?
I'm more likely to.
Okay, yeah, I
Probably,
guess.
maybe still wouldn't, but more likely to.
Yeah, let's wrap up the thing before we continue, Jerry. Final thoughts. Lanaire, please start us off.
Hey. I wasn't expecting that. Okay. Can still start, please.
Skills never even does. The guy is such a waste man.
Rose, you go then.
now why am I going first?
Okay, nobody's going. Yo, it's been your voice.
Yeah, yeah,
Alright.
wait. I'm ready. First of all, shout out to the parrot from the Parrot Side. Lived a good life. 2002 to 2006. Big shout
That's
out.
it.
If not for that parrot, would probably not be here. I mean,
I
Parrot
mean,
Nigga,
tried
what
now
you
four
on about?
years, 4 years or something. Then in terms of like our content for today, I mean, don't be pressured by other people's success. Rather, I feel like it should be an opportunity for encouragement and to
Mm,
just be motivated to do more in your lives. And even when we do fail, it's important to understand that failure is part of the process as well. I mean,
mm-hmm.
if we look at it in a certain perspective, failure just shows us one way in which we shouldn't do a certain thing. So, like, I mean, at the end of the day, you can always flip it and look at it from a different perspective that I've actually learned something that will help me do better. And yeah, come on, yeah, you're still a waste for not doing this. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I'll just add to this guy because even though he's insulting me, it's cool. Um, I'll say like don't allow fear to rule you because something you don't do because you're scared or something you do and fail kind of has the same results, apart from one key thing. Like when you do it and you fail, one, you can either learn from what you did wrong and try again, or two, you just know this is not for you and you don't do it again. But if you never do it, like you're still not gonna have what you didn't have anyway. But you're also maybe in the back of your mind thinking, oh, what if I did this? Like you don't want those regrets, like when you had the opportunity to do something and you just didn't do it because you were scared.
Mm,
So that's the fear of
okay.
failure ruling, and that goes for every aspect of life, all your relationship, people, skills. Um, so yeah, just take the leap of faith, man. Like don't allow fear rule you.
Lanaire, final thoughts.
My final thoughts are just that um, if you honestly don't like, if you're too scared of failure, then nothing ever would ever get done because yeah, I just think like failure is inevitable. And I think what's more important is about reflecting on the failure when it comes or if it comes. Actually, no, when it comes, because
Mm,
again, it's inevitable. And again, I'm just
mm,
gonna say like life should be treated more as a marathon. And when you watch a marathon, in the beginning, some players, not players rather, some athletes might be ahead of others, and you might be thinking, oh my god, this person's going to win. And then the final lap, like someone else overtakes the other. And I just think that
yeah.
is the perfect analogy for how we should just treat life and just walk at your own pace and at God's pace if you're religious, for instance. And things would eventually unfold at the appointed time and season. And we should just think of life more as seasons. I think that's the way I view life. And there's seasons where things are maybe you're
Yeah,
on
because sometimes
just
winter
easier.
be cold from.
Yeah.
Exactly. I like that. Yeah, so that's my one.
All right. Actually, let me give final thoughts this time. I feel like everybody we've said our pieces today. Everybody's spitting. Let me just say this real quick though. I feel like that whole fear of failure thing. Hey, y'all spitting this facts. Like the whole comparing yourself with other people. It just is what it is. Sometimes you need a frame of reference. Because if you don't see other people doing it, you might not know, okay, this is where I should be, or blah, blah, blah. However, don't overdo. Because it start to fuck with you mentally. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I think it was Rose that mentioned social media. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe calm down sometimes. If you need to deactivate your Instagram, do that. You know what I'm saying? Because I'll be honest, I'm a hater. Like, I look on Instagram, I see my ops, they're living well. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I fuck these niggas. You know what I'm saying? Like fuck these guys, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Even some people that, okay, like, sorry, go on.
No, I was just gonna add to what you said. Like, as much as I even brought up the whole comparison thing at the beginning, like, realistically speaking, for me, if I do a degree, I do a master's, I do law school, I have to do service, and I have to do law school again. Like, I'm gonna be behind. Like out of nothing I did wrong, just out of the process that I have to go through, like I'm gonna be behind. So someone that graduated at the same time as me and didn't do a master's and didn't have to do service and didn't have to do law school twice in 2 different countries. You're 4 years ahead of me technically, but you're meant to be, So as much as I say, oh, like it's a frame of reference and it's an ego thing or whatever, like at the back of my mind, I always know like I'm not lacking behind because I'm just not taking life seriously or because I did something wrong.
Yeah.
Just timing. Yeah, it is literally just timing.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it. So and everybody just do your thing, relax. You know what I'm saying? Social media, I think sometimes also about like because you see other people, it's not necessarily because I think it was Lanaire that said it's not necessarily because you see what they're doing and you're like, oh, I want to do that. But I think it's just like the symbols that come with it. Like one of my friends, for example, I seen her on Instagram story. She's in Mexico living life, and then she was talking to me about how she doesn't like that she works from home. She doesn't like that she has to wake up and go to some weird whatever to find Wi-Fi to work from home. She's waking up in a resort, by the way, but she doesn't like that she has to go and find Wi-Fi and work from home. That other people just get to go and surf. And I'm like, wow, what a huge fucking problem. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's all about perspective. Everybody, it doesn't matter how far up you go, there always going to be more problems. So let's just all,
honestly,
you know what I'm
it's so
saying?
true. I think even like some people we look at with more money, like even celebrities, like I think that's why I love watching biographies of these people because then they always talk about how essentially with their famous, there's a cost to it. So there's a cost to everything. It's just about really knowing like, okay, am I willing to pay this price? And some people just aren't willing to pay it, but they're a bit dishonest with themselves. So it's good to be content.
Yeah, it's fucks. Like Rose said, everybody's timeline is different. That's why, like I said, when you see them 45-year-olds in the club, don't judge them. You don't know what they've been through. Yeah, I can't say nothing.
For yourself, guy. We're letting you off the hook, bro. Like, bro, that shit ain't flying.
What you mean? I mean, it's just the facts. Yeah, you don't know what these niggas have been through, so it is what it is. So that's my piece. Just do what makes you happy. Is all I'm saying. Because at the end of the day, like Kamal said, you're gonna have regrets. So yeah, that's my piece. Fuck them kids. Hey, it's been your boys on the Parrot Side podcast, bro.
Skills, you sometimes sound like Eminem. I don't know. It reminds me of Eminem music videos.
It rates us 5 stars on Spotify, man. Y'all know what it is. Lanaire, please tell them. What do we tell them about the feedback? Yo, tell them.
Don't send us any feedback.
Hey, you heard us say, boy, we don't give a fuck. Shout out the gang still. Hey, peace out, bro. Catch us on the next one. Peace.
Peace. This Rose guy. What's
guy do now? I said peace now.
Why do you say it like that though?
Yeah, you ain't gotta kiss the mic. That's actually what you sound like, dude.
That's actually what you sound like.